last one, but it's okay. Well, I'm here on Facebook Live as well. Yep, here it is. There is YouTube. There you go. Hi there. So, again, you've tuned into That Girl, Jenna Karasoa, on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Anchor FM. Let me get everything else going, make sure everything is set up. Still getting used to having all these tabs. Anyways, it is Saturday. It is September 18th, 2021. And I hope, as always, whatever point in time of day, night, evening, afternoon, whenever you're consuming this content, I can only hope that you're having a good day. And I apologize in advance if I waste your time. That's pretty much it. You can take anything you want from this, a lot of it opinion, commentary. I like to bring up facts and sources. If you're interested in my little TikTok videos, they're very short. If you don't want to listen to me at all, I'm on blogspot.com, and it's also under Jenna Karasoa. And in that way, you can just read the overview. So if you don't want to listen, if you don't want to watch the stream. So also Pinterest has some interesting pins. What else? Instagram, more fashion. I'm slowly getting in my Instagram, Twitter, and I believe that's it. So with that, let me just give you a quick recap of what I discussed yesterday. I went over this little short story called The Legend of the Three Trees. I talked about the movie Get Out by Jordan Peele, and I'll probably be bringing that up again today because it's still relevant. And just mentioned for seasonal traditions, it's kind of fun to go to old houses doing ghost hunts and stuff, and they have different community sponsored events. It's fun to do Harvest Fest. And I also suggested yesterday, you look up your community's history, town history, the city, learning what kind of books were on, or laws were on the books, and how things have changed, family traditions, community traditions. Definitely think that you should take advantage of that. And if you are preparing for the new year and you want to get more organized and experience better time management, one of my suggestions was to practice. Like, use this time in the holidays when you're having fun and looking forward to things. Use this time to practice. So with that, I think I'm ready to get into what we're going to talk about today. So this is my first time ever reviewing an interview by a celebrity. I was reading in a magazine that I got from the library. It's a men's journal. I'm a huge fan of the actor Josh Brolin. I don't know if you've seen any of his movies. If you're a Goonies fan, I'm a Tarantino fan and the Coen brothers fan. Most of the top movies that I like are done by the Coen brothers and Quentin Tarantino. So he's been in both of theirs and films, a couple of their films. I don't know if you've ever seen Grindhouse, Planet Terror, anyone. He was in there. And then also No Country for Old Men is one of my absolute all-time favorite movies. It might be like in the top 3. I have to kind of read inventory what movies I like and why, but I'm leaning towards No Country for Old Men might be in the top 3. So there's that. That's why I was so happy to come across this, and I wanted to share some of his quotes. I think even for myself included, it's very imperative to learn this. And most times, well, we'll get to it. I don't want to get too far off topic. But next thing is talking about the media, social media, and the effects it has on the brain. Disclaimer, this stream, this podcast is probably going to be a little bit more extensive and lengthy because there's just so much that needs to be said about so much of these topics, especially the whole media and how it really depresses people, and people are constantly critiquing each other and comparing themselves to one another. It's gotten to the point where it's like talking about it is depressing, but it's the reality. And this is why I'm here talking about it, so people can break the cycle, myself included. And lastly, I think you might find this one very, very interesting. So as much as I'm very, frustrated with things going on in the world, I still say that I respect the patriarchy. I know a lot of people are like, why is she still talking about the patriarchy? It's still oppressive. There's lots of problems. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to disagree. But like I said many times, you can always learn something from your enemy, or they may not be your full enemy, there could be something that it's completely misinterpreted it. So I'm going to be discussing what Josh Brolin says, the safety and concern about women. Like, there's a section I'm going to be talking about now, the battle of the sexes and safety and security. How much do you need to live in something about a woman's perspective and how she should live her life and the expectations a man should have on a woman? So with that, let me go ahead and transition and get on going. Let me put my little side notes in here and yeah, get ready for it. Seriously, get ready for it. It's very difficult for me. Okay, so where do I start? Well, as a woman, I don't know. This is kind of tough because I don't want to come off as being disrespectful or like saying you're completely wrong and you don't understand my truth and you don't know how it is. I don't want to come off with that like I'm complaining and nagging, like, you know. Start with what Mr. Brolin said. I have the link in the description on the YouTube stream as well. I don't think I put it on the comments. I can put it in the comments here. So if anyone is streaming on YouTube, I'll go ahead and paste the link there so you can see what he said directly. You can read it. It's also going to be on blogspot.com, the link attached to the online article. But I have the physical article here with me. And his wife did the photos. She is an awesome photographer. Definitely extremely talented. Dude, this is her hubby. So mad respect right there. Strong family unit. Oh, another thing I want to point out, he's living out in the wilderness. And I know a lot of people talk about overpopulation, but that's one of the things I'm going to focus on is the myth of the world being overpopulated. It is not, but let me continue with what he said. He says, I don't want to get too far into this, but the idea of safety sounds like death to me. And this is like me reading this as a person who's like obsessed with safety and having at least 5 different backup plans. To sit here and say safety sounds like death to me kind of struck a chord. But continuing on, he says lots of different things. I'm going to be breaking it up. I highly encourage you to read all of it, but let me just highlight a couple of points. Okay, so he admits to, past drug use and stuff in his life. He's real. Those experiences kind of enabled me to get into a fuck it mode. Like, just screw it, And then I continue down and read. It says, I'm just a junkie at heart. You know what I mean? I don't want to get too far into this, but the idea of safety sounds like death to me. And I truly wish that I could have his complete laid back, relaxed state of mind about things. At first, when I read it, my initial response is like, well, it's really easy for him to say that, because he's a strong white man. Like, he's got this look, he's got, talent and ability and fame and fortune. People don't recognize him when he goes. I'm like, maybe that's why you could walk around life not feeling like you're in fear, because me as just being female is like, I genuinely don't understand how you can go through life without having that level of it. But this is what we've been talking about over the last couple of days, of finding the healthy balance of experiencing fear, realizing the dangers out there, but not living your life completely consumed by fear. Is that possible? In every circumstance, is that possible? Realistically, no, it's not. But I can see why it would be better for a person to aspire to get to that state of mind and also get into that actual physical state of safety. So with that, I'm just going to say it's the circumstances that he's living his worldview is much different than many other people. So if you're living in a harsh environment in the city scene, inner cities, places where there's a lot of hardships going on, your perspective of safety is much, much different. So, interestingly enough, too, I watched another video today on the TikTok by this gentleman, another white man, and he shared a different perspective, which is to me very, very humbling also and encouraging. He said that he was leaving the gym and there was a woman that was in front of him who had left just, seconds earlier. Sorry. And he noticed that, like, she looked over her shoulder at him and then she started walking faster. And then he's still walking his normal pace, but he's observed that she's uncomfortable. And then she approaches her car, she gets in there, and like she immediately locks the door. And she's like watching him. And then he happens to have had his car parked next to hers. So as of course, he's still in close proximity, obviously. It's not like he's trying to stalk her, but he's getting into the car. And then he said that he realized, like, this woman is afraid of me. Like, she's, like, literally scared. And there's, like, lots of other women. He's, like, saying that for the first time in his life, he's made the observation that women are afraid of us. Many are afraid. And when I first heard him say that, I was like, I'm glad that someone can actually, a man can come up here and say that there's a women are legitimately, some of us are afraid. And he made a call, call to action for men to be protectors, and to the ones who are causing problems for women to, handle it accordingly, like call them out, check them out. And a lot of feminists were calling for that action a couple years ago. The only problem that a lot of people had with it was making the blanket statement that this is how most men are. And the argument can go back and forth for days, for years. It's very frustrating looking at it, because at one point in time, again, I told you this is going to be a bit lengthy. At one point in time, I looked at the world through rose-colored glasses. I was very optimistic and happy, just thinking, hey, you know what, life goes on. Everyone's just doing their own thing, trying to survive, um, forgiving people, letting things go, just, just generally, I wouldn't say completely happy, but just not, as fearful. Just, we go through life and don't think too much about it. If someone pays you a compliment. And as I transitioned, you hear disturbing stories. You hear what actually happens in life, and then you hear about what's happening in other countries and the treatment of women, studying the history books and everything. And we learn about people in the Bible and the mistakes, and how the patriarchy is this headship, and it's pretty much, where the men will make the decisions, or how they feel that society should operate, and whether or not it's in the best interest of the individual woman or women in general. Irrelevant. It's about efficiency, practicality, and you just stick to your most basic function, and then that's it. No arguing. That's just how it goes, So we can go through the history and explain all the errors and everything and the problems, and trust me, if it would be a lengthy discussion. Let me just try to keep it basic in general today. So, like I said, the gentleman made the observation that many women are afraid of men. And I'm getting another opinion from a man who says that he lives his life not fearing anything. And I'm like, where do we find the healthy balance? Because we know chronic worrying and fear and panic are oftentimes used as tactics to keep people enslaved, to keep you mentally numb and harbored and depressed and hindered. So being in a constant state of fear is very, very unhealthy for a person. It's not good. But the thing is, though, what can you do with a person they're living in fear because they are in unsafe circumstances? Their living conditions are very, very dangerous. So it's kind of like, you can't just tell a person, don't be afraid. Well, that's one layer, one aspect of it. So this is why, instead of me getting angry at him and saying, well, that's not my reality, well, that's not true, let us see what we can learn from Mr. Brolin and other people, other men, the people in the patriarchy. What can we take from their perspective and get to the point of, like, well, I don't have to be in fear, you know? So this is what I'm going to be doing. And so far, that's kind of the intro, because the more and more I examine the talking points that I was going to share with you, the more and more I realize that it's all really, really connected. So let me just go ahead and stop there with that first segment, because this next section I'm going to talk about, it's seriously, you'll understand why I'm tying it together. You'll definitely get an understanding. Hang on. Sorry about that. Okay, so with this next section, I keep mentioning that movie Get Out. And the movie predominantly focuses, it's about a black man and he's married to, or he's seeing a white woman. And I had made mention yesterday in the podcast not to focus too much on the race, even though there's a lot that needs to be said about race issues, and that movie brings up. Give me one sec while let's see, the Facebook stream is going. Uh, it's trying to reconnect. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, I have too many things going on. It's okay. So there's a lot that can be race issues within the movie Get Out, um, but I'm going to focus on the general theme of the movie. And seeing as that black man is a caricature of what's happening to the average person. There is a scene where he is watching TV as a child. He has a flashback. He's watching focus on ties into the original thing about Josh Berlin and his perspective of not living in fear. I'm like, well, you're a strong man. You don't have to worry about trying to fight off an offender as much as, me as a female would have to try to fight off an offender. You have the physical advantage. Just going to say it. But does the average person have the mental ability to ward off the temptations of the media? Are you able to control that? The reason why the average person, and there's a lot of the single women seen, and they're posting their lives on the TikTok. I have to call it the TikTok because it's something completely foreign to me. They're expressing their fears, they're expressing their insecurities, they are comparing themselves to people in the magazines and the model or the media, and we're constantly critiquing one another. Um, Social interactions are completely limited. People are spending more of their time online. They're not getting out, and it's already been proved when you have like the lack of sunshine and vitamin D in your system. Um, and then we have a lot of the news stories coming out with these different strains and wars and talking about natural disasters. Um, so going back to the fear thing, it's all this vicious cycle. It's a terrible mental storm. It's completely keeping us essentially enslaved. Myself included, being very hyper vigilant in general, and then being more so as mother bear comes in, and then you're hearing the extreme stories. They're only posting the worst stuff a lot of times, and it feels as if actually looking back and seeing how the media works, it just puts an unnecessary layer of fear in your chronic fear to the point where it can be debilitating and increasing, your chronic stress and chronic worrying um, will manifest itself in your body in different ways, causing physical ailments um, and sickness. So the worrying stuff is not healthy, but how do you stop yourself from being afraid and being in fear and living in fear while balancing the mental awareness of being cautious and being smart and wise into your decisions? So, like I said before, battle of the sexes. Women seem to have to deal with fear and then also the mental trap of comparing themselves to other women, comparing themselves now to men as women are experiencing more independence, they're going into the workforce. So not only are you trying to compete with women on a physical appearance and on a youthful appearance, competing men for a financial advantage in competing. So it's one of those things where it's what do you actually, how do you combat this? It's really depressing when you think about like young girls were growing up and they didn't have the era with like you didn't have a million other people to compare yourself to. You didn't have all these celebrities constantly bombarding you with their content. They're showing you filtered images They're trying to say, "Oh yeah, I'm just like you," but they're posting their best sides. And thank God for honest journalism and paparazzis, because they will come out there and they'll expose the truth and they'll show you how you look. And I feel like, as frustrating as it is, you want to just say, "Hey, look at me for my talent and my ability," and instead of that, it's become constant competition and critiquing and tearing down people's characters, or like, just focusing on all the wrong things. And instead of encouraging one another and lifting up one another, regardless of whatever they're comparing one another to, we just get back into the nitpicking, the critiquing, the I mentioned a while back, when you watch the news and politics, constant complaining, going back and forth, hatred, spewing out gossip, slandering each other's character, constant negativity, nothing good to say about another person, um, constant back and forth. It gets to the point where, like, we pick up these habits of negativity and anger and malice, and then we replicate it in our personal lives. So we're going out in society, conducting ourselves with this level of critiquing and complaining and judging and ranking and rating. But a lot of it is negative stuff. So, going back to the whole thing about hypnosis in the movie Get Out, I keep emphasizing this also as well, bringing back the other podcasts. If you listen to Eye Care and Eye Health, the screen use is not only damaging to your eyes, it's damaging to your mind. It's keeping you suppressed, keeping you in constant chronic fear. And some of it, like he says, I'll re-quote what he's saying directly from the magazine, directly. He says, "The revelation that all fear is self-created, none of it's real." Um, to an extent, a lot of it is just generated through the things that we're consuming. A lot of it isn't correct, isn't true, isn't accurate, and we're believing things that are leading us astray. Of course, there's a lot of truth to the things that they're talking about in the world. A lot of these things are happening. But I think what he and a lot of other people have been able to master is remaining calm and composed with a clear state of mind despite what's happening. So how does one actually achieve that? Because there's many people who are still living in a state of fear, who are in dangerous situations. So when we approach those actual, legitimate, fearful places in life, is it possible to override the brain and to still find a safe state of mind, but being still vigilant and aware of the dangers? So, how does one go about? I am living in fear. I am in a dangerous, debilitate you. That is what I'm interested in exploring. So, with that, like I said, my last segment, let me get going. Coming from the man, the patriarchy, um, but also why we are in this current state, why so many women specifically are in chronic fear, and is there something that these men can do to help? If you guys seem to live a life of ease, where the thought of being safe, of safety, sounds like death. Because, like, with me, I'm like, my objective is not to die, so that is why I focus what could happen. Please try to approach this with a delicate balance. So, let me see. I was going through the article, and what can we really take from him? So, he's living someplace out in the wilderness, shot on location at Ghost Ranch, New Mexico. Ooh, he's living on a ranch, or he's been to a ranch. Let me see what he has shared. Let me read directly from this. It says, "Sobriety has helped Berlin reflect on an impossible spectrum of life experiences. just crashed into a tree and died on Josh's 27th birthday in 1995. She was an actress and wildlife activist who kept exotic pets. He recalls helping birth mountain lions and being woken up by bobcats nipping at his face. Later on, there would be more resilience tests. Days before shooting No Country for Old Men, Berlin broke his collarbone in a motorcycle accident and thought he'd blown it. A few years later, he came down with Bell's palsy, a partial paralysis of the face, another possible career killer. When you glance in the review mirror, see your face hanging up Josh Berlin on Instagram feed, and it's clear he's still processing stuff. So he's been through some hardships, losing a mother at the age of 27 on his birthday. But we can learn from him and what he's got going on in his life. And one of my big emphasis is talking about living a simpler life and essentially disconnecting from the social media, the catching up with the all the phones and all the accessories and all the different subscriptions and all the different instant whatever you want. My biggest emphasis is, we need to just maybe live a little bit more simply. We don't all have the same advantages. We don't all have the same starting point. There are some things that are just legitimately unfair. There are some things that you've experienced in your life that someone else is never going to have to. And you have your reasons for your anger, your frustrations, your depression, whatever's ailing you. And as much as it's easy to say, hey, don't live a life of fear, but like that other gentleman who shared on his TikTok video, seeing a woman having to rush to her car and lock the door because she's afraid of the guy walking behind her. This is something that I think many people, many men, especially the ones who are the patriarchy, this is why I do respect you guys, because advantages to some of the choices that you have made in your life. One of them, like I like to say, is living off the land or living simply. There's something about just the endurance of hard work. Today, I've had to take a couple of walks, and the reason why I've chosen to walk more is because I've been saying, take the longest walk or take the long walk. It's a small mental exercise to get my brain actually doing what it's designed to do. So, with that, one little small step can help a person choose a different alternative than participating in other vices. You might have to take a longer walk. Let's say that you can't walk right now for whatever reason. You can't go out physically doing something. So how is it that a person can find the ability to get over fear and not have to live in a chronic fear state? Well, realizing, I think, that social media and the flickering screens, the screen is flashing lights at you really, really fast, essentially. Realizing that has an effect on your brain and how you process stuff. Also, considering the influence that you're taking in, the videos that you're watching and consuming. Is it productive information? Is it helping you learn anything? Is it giving you more fear and anxiety? Are you comparing yourself to other people? Is it making you more depressed? Do you feel more isolated, or do you feel more included? Are you addressing problems? Are you fixing problems in your life? Or are you keeping yourself sedated with entertainment and avoiding things? So this is what we're talking about when we're like, you need to clean our lenses, take a long walk, and really, also from another male figure, the whole thing about women needing to get their arms strong so they can keep the windows clean. Yeah, it's really disrespectful and offensive. But instead of sitting around and getting angry about what some man said, what did he actually say? Could we spend some more time cleaning? Men included. This isn't just for women anymore. It's like, are there small little details that we're avoiding and leaving out and not doing, and are they adding up to bigger problems? Is this contributing to your fear, your chronic fear? Are you putting things off and not going over the mental hurdles to overcome problems? Things we need to examine. As much as I like to get angry at these people and just say, hey, you don't understand it or you don't get it, that's probably true. They don't understand it. They don't get it. They probably won't ever. They won't be able to really empathize with you and your fear or why you're in a state of fear. It does not mean, though, that the information is incorrect or their methodology is incorrect. I think we can take advantage of this opportunity and learn what exactly are people doing to get out of that mental trap of fear. Again, myself included. Um, and also being able still to be cautious and take things seriously because as a woman, we know walking around at night versus a guy doing that, the chances of, a woman being able to fight off a male aggressor and the chances of a man being able to fight off a male aggressor, the advantage would probably be in the man versus man combat because generally speaking, the men are physically stronger, and the average man probably wouldn't have to have that same level of fear of being attacked. So we need to keep that perspective. I keep bringing it up. You need to keep that perspective in your mind. Um, the men who don't understand why it is that we're in fear, or why it is that we treat you differently as well. Patience for women is because they don't have that level of fear that we carry. Um, we just assume that the problem isn't there. That's the only thing that I can understand or wrap my mind around is like, you don't think there's a problem because you can't feel it. You don't know what it feels like. Um, and also, I think people don't understand it too because they just assume, how do I put it without coming off as finger pointing and like, I think the situation of this society in general has kind of just made it argument and equal rights and women deserve to be treated like men and we want equal representation and everything needs to be equal. um, well, let down women is different when they're amongst their friends and peers, and we keep talking that a lot of the feminists in the past have talked about, we want our freedoms, our rights, our independence, and everything to be equal. So I don't know, maybe that's a contributing factor there, or it's just pretty much breeded or perpetuated a surplus of disrespectful men who don't appreciate women. So those are they become more of the norm, more of the experiences women have with negative men, and the accountability isn't there. And then we find, I think, the problem is women tend to be very what's the word? Once you've experienced such negativity and extreme abusive circumstances and trauma, you you change as a person and your attitude becomes different. And then if a woman or a guy's being nice, or no, you're going to be skeptical. It's your psyche, your mental, everything has changed. So after time, though, I don't think clearly. Probably men don't understand. Hysterical, batshit crazy, she devil. I keep watching these compilation videos on YouTube, tearing into modern day women and making fun of them and seeing how desperate and lonely they are and just making light of their circumstances. As much as, there are plenty of women out there who have brought on their own problems upon themselves, it's their fault, several of them. There are also many more out there who were given false information. They were genuine in their relationships and they got really crappy deals. They got treated like crap. And instead of being able to, I don't know how we would, it's difficult to get back to it. It really is. I think it's really asking a lot, especially the guys who like to make fun of women in these situations. I think it's asking a lot when you, for some of them, you don't really realize what they've been through, and you expect them to be a certain way, you know. And it doesn't help when we talk about the media and the lies and the manipulation and the giving them poor information, and then there's no accountability from bad behavior from the disrespectful men. You just have this terrible vicious cycle where no one can trust anyone, everyone's in fear, they're skeptical of any person who tries to be nice, and we're finding ourselves in a mental gridlock. And how do you break yourself from that mental gridlock? Because men are now being hurt. I shouldn't say now, it's always been, but it's to the point now where we have so many who are not even engaging in relationships. They would rather they would rather pay for a prostitute, for a sex worker, than actually deal with a woman, because it's gotten that bad. So when you have the relationship so severed and everyone is completely riddled with fear and anxiety and hurt and resentment and trauma, they don't want to try and work it out. They don't want to try and understand anyone. So what ends up happening is you fuel the demand for that type of work, for sex work, and then women end up becoming enslaved to that, and then they become angry and bitter, and then men become angrier and bitter, and instead of working through the problems, women just give themselves out for that and get paid, and then guys will pay for it, and then to the point where there's no relationships. It's just a transactional thing, and there's no love, there's no commitment, there's nothing. And that's exactly where we're trending. So as much as I like to get mad at these people and say, well, you don't know what it's like, it doesn't matter whether or not they know what it's like. Are they right? Like, is the information, like, can we learn something from it? Can we actually take some of the examples? And I think, yeah, absolutely. Because I've been saying the same thing, like, dude, get unplugged, get back into nature, live on, the basic things of life, the simple things. There's nothing more beautiful about running to the grocery store. You should be able to say, hey, I got this taken care of, and just go to your own supply. And not everyone's there. Not everyone can do that. So this is why the talk is like, we need to just accept that things are changing. There's so many things happening really fast and really rapidly, and there's no more time for finger pointing and saying, well, he's a racist, and he's a chauvinist, or he's a pig, or she's a she devil, or she's a bitch, or she's a liar, or she's an angry black woman, or she's got trauma, or she's messed up, or he's this, he's a narcissist, he's an abusive, person, this person's over here doing this, and this person, it's like, okay, enough. Like, we're done. Let's just stop. We all have problems. What's the best way to fix the problem? And I think one of the most reoccurring things is people love to explore, they love to travel, like to see beautiful things. I keep talking about happiness as well. What is actual happiness? It's not so much the feeling that you're going after. You're going after the journey. You're going after the experience and working through the problem, and then through working through it, that's when the feelings come. So if you're constantly sitting around sedated by your smartphone, by advice, sucking, let's just be real, dude. You're not getting out of it. You're just pretty much like in that movie. You need to like get out, because if you're not paying attention, if you're not going to wake up, trust me, there's someone who's going to be benefiting off of your presence. They're taking your money through, marketing, advertising. That is something that they can benefit from you. You know, the thing with sex work and everything, everyone wants to be independent and entrepreneurs, and women want to be sexually liberated. Sorry, in the long run, you're just feeling an addiction for men, and you're putting future women at risk, because there's going to, and it's like, where's the supply coming from? They're going to be taking the supply from younger women. So that's one of the things I'm talking about. We need to wake up, because there are people who are profiting off of you, whether it's money, whether it's your physical. And if you watch the movie, you'll see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. So watch Get Out. You people seriously need to wake up. So let me go ahead and transition, because this has been my longest segment I think I've ever done. And like I always say, there's so much more to be said. There's always so much. There's always so much more to be said, and I'm actually considering doing more than one stream, and really getting more into the more details of some of these issues. But let me go ahead and wrap it up because it's already been, according to my wonderful YouTube, it's almost 45 minutes, and I don't like to talk that long because, like, realistically, who wants to listen to this up? I kind of tied in all of my talking points into the same thing. I find it interesting, though, that Josh Brolin's character in Quentin Tarantino's Grindhouse, he was a doctor, and his wife was actually preparing to leave him. That movie, if you want to watch a good Halloween movie, the Grindhouse compilation or the Planet Terror one with collaboration Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, definitely great movie package right there. But his character in that film was, yeah, he was, I guess you could call him a patriarch, a good answer. And then in the movie, she loses her leg, and they somehow attach some machine gun to it. So definitely watch that one. Josh Brolin, Rose McGowan, Tarantino's in it, and Rodriguez is also in it. So love it. But the reason why I do love it is you have as a band of misfits, a whole bunch of complete strangers who were trying to survive and they band together. Like, I love movies like that. So totally check that one out. What can we learn from these people? What can we learn? Seriously, despite him having a completely different worldview, not understanding how, I guess, maybe, I'm sure he has perspective. Obviously, he does. I'm sure he's seen some stuff. He has seen some stuff and what he's doing. That's what I'm taking from it. You need to learn some things about life and balance it out and not have it consume you where, like, you're getting yourself sick or you're depressing yourself further. Women are constantly comparing themselves with one another, tearing each other apart. That's another issue. The depression rate, the suicide rate, all of it. It's like, it's terrible. There's a huge problem, and what we can take from it is we need to just step back, unplug, and the mental thing. I don't know who's listening to this, but I'm going to say it has to be said. If you're in an unsafe position right now, if you are in a scary circumstance, if you are living in chronic fear because of your circumstances, and you're like, how the hell can I get out of this? I can't get out of it. I'm stuck. This is my life. And you're somehow hearing this, let me tell you right now, genuinely pray. I want to take it next level. I've been talking about on just a bottom surface right now about life, but I want to take it next level. Seriously, plead the blood of Jesus Christ. Pray and reach out to him. That is one of the first things that you can do to get a hold of the mental grip that your mind may be being held captive to. There is so much going on in the world. There's so much deception and lies spewing out, demonic spiritual attacks, whatever you want. But what I've learned in those last couple of weeks reading this, definitely chronic fear and being led through a life having to be in fear constantly, it doesn't have to be that way. It's a mental obstacle, mental challenge, mental hurdle. There are steps that need to be taken, of course, but one of the first things you can do is just genuinely pray. If you want to call it meditation, if you want to call it out, reaching out to the universe or to a spiritual higher power, because if you genuinely think that, I think it'll help you understand why there's so much evil. There's good out there. There is more to this life than meets the eye. And that's why one of the reasons why I don't find myself getting too offended or too mention anything too much about it. He mentioned sobriety. I'm mentioning truly tuning into God. I guarantee you, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. There are forces of good out there that can overpower, that has already won and triumphed, but we need to go through these earthly trials and tests. And we all are experiencing resilience tests. And don't think that this is the end and then this is all that your life has to offer. That's not true either. Here talking with everyone, I'm online as much as I can be trying to give most practical, factual, helpful, useful information. I believe that there's a lot more for you, for your family, for your peers. Um, the first thing you need to do is like get out of your head, get out of the fear, get out of the depression. First step would be to seek help if you need it for social media, for any other type of addictions or vices, physical things you can do to alter your state, whether that's getting healthy. I've been talking about nutrition. A lot of talks about nutrition, so it's better about getting proper nutrition, getting vitamin D3, magnesium, looking into nascent iodine, doing some research on things to really strengthen your immune system. That also helps, you know. And if you can, if you're in a position to move out to the country and live off the land, I would highly recommend you do that too. Um, a lot of people are doing that. So let me go ahead and get off of here. I've talked long enough. I appreciate whoever has tuned in and heard this. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot. And as I advance more, hoping. So with that, I pray that I have not wasted your time and that you learned something. And if not, I'm sorry. And yeah, like I say always, God's peace. And thank you very much, whoever tuned in today.